This year, there are only 2 states electing a new governor. Both of those elections are happening in a little over 3 weeks now. One's in New Jersey. Governor Chris Christie's lieutenant governor on the left there. She's running for the top spot. She's lagging behind her Democratic rival by 18 points in the latest poll. The other gubernatorial race this year is Virginia. That one's turning out to be more competitive. This is interesting, though. Over the weekend, the Republican in that race, Ed Gillespie, he appeared set to get a big boost, a visit from the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. The Washington Post writing that Mike Pence threw his weight behind candidate Ed Gillespie by campaigning with him on Saturday. The trouble, though, is that apparently Mike Pence's weight may not register all that well in Southwest Virginia. The Washington Post describes that rally between Pence and Gillespie as only half filled. Organizers expected around 1,200 people to show up, but only about 600 people did. The Trump administration is right now being sued over stopping Obamacare subsidies. They're being sued over DACA. They're facing international pressure for disavowing the Iran nuclear deal and for their handling of the nuclear threats from North Korea. In addition to all that stuff, the Trump campaign is under investigation from 3 congressional committees and the FBI special counsel for possible collusion with the Russian attack on our election. That's an investigation that has reportedly expanded to include Trump's business dealings over the years. The president is reportedly under investigation for obstruction of justice over the firing of the FBI director in relation to the Russia probe. There's more to report every day on these investigations and the scandals that led to them, which has churned up a lot of open speculation as to whether this president might, for some reason or another, get himself turfed out of office before his term is up. Now, Vice President Mike Pence's potential legal jeopardy on these matters is less widely discussed, but real. The vice president has hired an outside lawyer now to help with both the congressional and federal investigations into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. We don't know how he's paying for that lawyer, but we're trying to figure it out. His involvement in the Trump campaign, his role leading the Trump transition, his role in responding to the Comey firing are all matters that are potentially under scrutiny. The vice president has repeatedly made demonstrably false statements about matters under consideration by Robert Mueller, including Mike Flynn's contacts with the Russian government, Flynn's foreign financial ties, and the firing of James Comey. So the vice president may be in trouble himself in these scandals and investigations. But still, however long Donald Trump ends up serving as president, if you had to place a bet on it, the single most likely person to succeed him in office for any reason is still Mike Pence. And that makes Jane Mayer's latest epic piece for The New Yorker an important read, aside from the fact that she reveals that the vice president's childhood nickname was Bubbles. His family called him Bubbles. I had no idea. I've read everything ever written about Mike Pence. I never knew he was called Bubbles. Jane Mayer's piece is called The Danger of President Pence. It's a deep dive into Pence's long-held conservative beliefs and the cohort of conservative donors who have supported him over the years. None of that appears to have concerned the president, who's had no qualms about putting down or mocking his vice president, particularly for his social conservative views. Quote, according to a longtime associate, Trump likes to let Pence know who's boss. A staff member from Trump's campaign recalls him mocking Mike Pence's religiosity. He said when people met with Trump after stopping by Pence's office, Trump would ask them, hey, did Mike make you pray? Quote, during a meeting with a legal scholar, Trump belittled Mike Pence's determination to overturn Roe versus Wade. The legal scholar had said that if the Supreme Court did so, many states would likely legalize abortion on their own. You see, Trump asked Pence, you've wasted all this time and energy on it, and it's not going to end abortion anyway. When the conversation turned to gay rights, Trump motioned toward Pence and joked, don't ask that guy. He wants to hang them all. I should mention that the vice president's office has responded somewhat to Jane Mayer's reporting. The vice president's press secretary putting out this statement tonight, quote, the New Yorker piece is filled with unsubstantiated, unsourced claims that are untrue and offensive. No word on if they are asking for any specific corrections. Also, no specific denial on the Bubbles thing. Joining us now is Jane Mayer, staff writer for The New Yorker magazine. Ms. Mayer, it is great to have you with us tonight. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let me give you a chance tonight first just to respond to this statement from the vice president's office. He says your piece is filled with unsubstantiated, unsourced claims that are untrue and offensive. Are they complaining to you or to the New Yorker about something specific that they think is wrong?
No, they are not. I guess that all I can say is we stand by our story. We feel very proud of the reporting. And particularly, I have to say, I feel that one of the strengths of the story is how many people are on the record and how many of those people are Republicans who've known Pence for a long time, including many from Indiana. So anyway, I think it's just kind of a knee-jerk thing they do sometimes.
It seems to me that there are sort of three sort of strands to your reporting here. And within the framework of, like, if you're fantasizing about Trump being turfed out of office, don't fantasize that Pence is going to be awesome. This is kind of the general introductory framework that you put on it. But within that, you basically describe Mr. Pence as being very, very connected to the billionaire Koch brothers, and him being key to the Koch brothers getting a lot out of that they want out of this administration, particularly in terms of personnel in high office. You also describe him. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, and you also describe him as, and some quotes from his family that essentially describe him as, like, not that bright or capable, and I'll let that stuff stand on its own, because that's hard to talk about without seeming like I'm just picking on him. But the third point is that you describe his conservatism in a way that seems like it was almost surprising to you. Everybody thinks of him as very conservative, but it seems like in your reporting, you're finding that his conservatism was more radical, more sort of outside even the conservative mainstream than you had expected.
That's true. I mean, of course, everybody who knows anything about politics and follows Mike Pence at all knows that he sort of defines social conservatism, state of the art in the country. But I didn't realize till I went to Indiana and talked to people how far out of the mainstream his views are, and that so many of his opponents actually are Republicans in the state. The Republican business community in Indiana was absolutely up in arms over a couple of the positions he took. I mean, his position on abortion was so far out there that he supported legislation that would require women to have fetal burials for aborted fetuses and for miscarriages, and also gave them made it illegal for them to decide to have an abortion if their fetus had physical anomalies. I mean, it was sort of the far edge of things. And then on gay rights, really, this is where the business community became so upset, because the businesses there have a hard time recruiting, good staffers, good people, employees, and they felt it was giving the whole state a black eye when he passed something called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and what it really meant was it was giving businesses the right to say that for religious reasons they could turn away gay customers, and there was just such an outcry in the country that the Indiana business community said, we're never going to be able to get tourists here, we can't get employees here, and Pence had to back away from it. He didn't see it coming, though. He's not as swift a politician as you would think, maybe, given that he's the vice president. He was kind of blindsided by the whole thing, and then he retreated from it.
Well, that's another remarkable part of your reporting in terms of sort of what dire straits he was in when President Trump picked him to be his running mate, facing maybe a 50-50 chance of being reelected in Indiana, people having "Fire Pence" signs on their front lawns, having alienated all of his allies, not just seen as super conservative, but seen as essentially, in some important ways, very incompetent as an Indiana governor, a state that has economic trouble before and beyond the additional economic harm that sort of bill did.
He was incredibly unpopular. I mean, and it was almost a fluke that he was chosen, but yet it tees him up in a way to make him potentially a president of the United States. I mean, I have Newt Gingrich saying he thinks he's, sort of a shoo-in to be the Republican nominee whenever Trump doesn't run. So next, and so, I mean, and one of the other things that surprised me in the story was how close Trump came to picking Chris Christie instead of Pence, and really in many ways wanted to, but he kind of got pushed out of it, or as someone said, led to Pence. He was sort of surrounded by family and advisors who said, you've got to pick Pence.
Jane, there's one other piece of your reporting that I want to ask you about. Can you sit for one more second and we'll take a
Sure.
break and come back?
Sure.
Okay, Jane Mayer has just done an epic profile in The New Yorker on Mike Pence. One of the things she breaks in this story is the news of how Pence may have brought the Russia investigation upon the Trump administration with one specific bad decision. And that's next. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.